and welcome. My name is Doing. In this video I'm going to be making a basic bodice pattern block. I'm going to be able to use it as a template to make so many other things. Very important and very useful, so just watch to see how I do it. Here are the measurements that I'm using in this video. So these are my measurements. I've just written them out so everything is clear. So I'll first start with making my vertical and horizontal line. On the horizontal line, I'm going to mark it on the shoulder. So now I'm just going to write down the vertical measurements, starting with the shoulder to bust. So next will be the shoulder to the waist. So I'll just label that as waist. Next, shoulder to hips. So I'm just going to start transferring the horizontal measurement, starting with the shoulder. So the next is going to be the bust line. So I'm going to be dividing my circumference by 4 because it's just quarter of a real bodice. Same with the waist. I'm also adding 1 inch to the waist to cover for the darts that I'll be adding. On the hips line as well, just transferring the horizontal measurements. So now I'm just creating the neck hole. The basic neck hole is 3 inches, both on the horizontal and the vertical line. So I'm just connecting that with my ruler and also connecting all the lines as well. So to create the armhole, I'm going to be marking 2.5 inches from the bust line to create the upper chest line. Next, I'm just going to join the line. So to create the armhole, we have to transfer the shoulder measurement onto the upper chest line and draw a straight line. So I'm just going in my Fashion Master to just create that perfect curved line to join those two lines together. And this is it. Just extending it down a little just to give it more length. So to create the dart, I'm going to be needing half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.75. So after that, I'm going to be marking 1 inch dart on the waistline. Then from the hips line, I'm going to be coming up by 4 inches. Also on the bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch. So I'm just going to connect everything together to create the dart. So this is what I meant by the 1 inch for the waist. So I'll be coming down by 1 inch on the shoulder line to create a real shoulder, because a real human shoulder isn't straight. So here I'm just adding half an inch seam allowance all around, connecting all the dots. So I'm just cutting the pattern out because we are done with the front piece. So using this template, I can easily widen my pattern or lengthen it however I choose. So to create the back piece, I'm just going to be using the leftover paper. So I'm just aligning everything together with pins. So the first thing I'm going to do is create the zip allowance for the back. which is about 1 inch from the straight line on the front piece. So I'm just going to mark that as zip allowance, and now I'm just going to transfer all the points on the paper. I also just connect everything with my ruler. So for the back neckline, I'm only coming down by 1 inch because the back isn't as low as the front. I'm just going to connect that. And then just using the front to mark out the shoulder line. And then just do that same thing, come down by 1 inch. So to create the armhole, transferring the shoulder measurements. So here I made a mistake with this armhole, so I'm just going to go back in and redo the line because this is an allowance line. So I'm just recreating the real line by reducing it by 0.5 inches. So with this new line, I'm going to create the real armhole. So now I'm just going to create the seam allowance for the armhole, which is still 1.5 inch. Yes, so now everything is back in order. So I'm just going to cancel out that line to avoid any. So to create the dart, I'm going to transfer the same nipple to nipple measurement on the upper chest line, or the horizontal line basically, and just connect it with a straight line. Because this is the back, we're taking it up to the upper chest line. So the same 1 inch, we're still going to come down from the upper chest line just by 1 inch. And from the hip line, we're going to come up by 2 inches. So now we're just going to connect the line to create the dart for the back. You can see the difference between the front and the back. The back doesn't have any bust to accommodate, that's why it goes up way longer. Just cutting it all out, and then we are done. So placing them side by side to see the difference in the neckline, in the armhole. The front armhole is much more curved, and the zip allowance, and then the darts. These are the differences in the front and back for this pattern. So now to create the armhole, I'm just going to place the front and back pattern like this on a new paper and just trace out the shape. So after doing this, I'm just going to transfer my arm length and also transfer the wrist measurements and also add 0.5 seam allowance. So I'm just going to go around by 0.5 inch for the real line because we copied the seam allowance, and then find the midpoint of the armhole, then connect it to the midpoint of the wrist with a straight line. So I'm just cancelling out this mistake right here on the paper, connecting into a straight line and just creating the line, connecting the dotted line. So I'm using the red ink to signify the seam allowance and the black to signify the actual measurements. Yep. So I'm just gonna cut out this piece. So I'm just leaving it flat and labeling it back and front. So that is it. So stay tuned for the pants pattern block. Thank you for watching.